But in addition to that, so one thing I wanted to cover in preparation for this bear hunt, I was like, I've shot one bear before, and that was like 3 or 4 years ago with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, hey, where are you supposed to aim on a bear? Like a deer, right? And that is what most people think is like you'd aim where a deer is. That is not the case. So in studying the anatomy of a bear, I kind of broke it down, and we should be able to generate some sort of image. Number one, the heart sits farther back and higher, and the lungs sit back farther than a deer. So if you aimed at an exact shot as a deer, you could be in trouble for a few reasons. One, you could miss the lungs and heart. But two, because the heart on a deer basically sits against the bottom of the chest. Like, in order to hit the heart on a deer, you're almost missing the deer. Like, you're almost shooting under it. It is so low in the body cavity. It's insane. Whereas this is not the case with the bear. It's sitting up higher. In addition, the lungs are back a ways. So there's pros and cons to that. The pro is you do not want to shoot the shoulder of a bear.
Yeah.
They have extremely hard shoulders, and a lot of bullets will deflect. Now, we're using 300 Weatherby Magnums. It is my shot would have been probably between 50 and 100 yards. I probably would have been okay, but statistically, a lot of people won't be. So, number one rule for a bear is stay away from the shoulder. So there was a lot of people toting this middle rule.
Mm-hmm.
So you find the middle of the bear from front to back, and the middle of the bear up and down, and shoot there, which would obviously be, if you did that on a deer, you'd be gut-shotting the deer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, with the bear, that's kind of the grass that they give you. That's how far back the lungs are.
That's the tail end of the lungs. So you'd be better off than if you shot a deer there, but...
Right. So I was studying, I studied the anatomy of it, and I kind of broke it down, and I kind of inched it off, and I found that in the center height of the body, about 4 to 6 inches back from the front shoulder, like the final part of the blade, to make sure you don't hit it.
So kind of in between that middle point and the shoulder blade.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, right about there is probably the hot spot. So that's where I'll be aiming when I get a chance to shoot at a bear again, but I just thought people would find that interesting. It's not exactly what you would think. People think, like, for a bear, you just aim just like you would a deer. That's not the case. A lot of people go by the middle rule, but I suggest middle height in the bear, because you got to also remember, bears have so much fat, especially in the fall.
Yeah.
So you don't want to shoot the fat. Like, if you, like a brisket shot on a deer, or like but not dead on brisket, like into the chest cavity, but if you shot low at all on a bear, like let's say you made a heart shot on a bear, if the heart was that of where a deer is, like, so if you aimed at where you would aim for the heart for a deer on the bear, you probably wouldn't even hit meat. You'd probably go right through fat.
Yeah, because
the other difference is you also have fur.
Yep.
To think about, which
that's the other
even higher.
The other reason,
Yeah, that was what I was gonna say.
Yeah, that thick fur. And then something else that I read was, okay, so you're like studying the anatomy of the bear again, and like you got one coming in. Let's say it's quartering away, which means it's like away from you. Now can be a sweet spot for a deer, because then you can hop them right up through the heart and the lungs, and then it'll get lodged in the far shoulder. So it knocks them down with that far shoulder shot, as well as the lungs and the heart. Instantaneous drop. It's over. With a bear, that's recommended against. That whatever angle you take, your goal should be to go through and through on the bear.
Yeah.
Reason being is because of the thick fat that I mentioned, the thick fur that you mentioned, that clogs blood like you wouldn't believe. They don't bleed very much unless you go through and through. If you go through and through with a good caliber, you're in good shape, but the blood can still be pretty scarce.
Yeah, and because the lungs are further back, if you do a quartering away shot, you're more likely to only hit one lung. And they said that if you only hit one lung, that bear will still run for a while.
Yeah.
Just to clear up that fat and blood situation, it's because when you shoot the bear, the fat will essentially plug that hole.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you won't get any blood.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's fat. His nuts are on the other side. No, I'm just kidding.
Also, isn't there like a misconception that only females have brown noses or something like that?
I don't know who said that.
Well, I wasn't gonna blame anybody, but
I don't know who's saying that. You're the only one here saying that. It's negative, and you're being negative, and that's a Mike Tyson quote. Look up Mike Tyson saying you're being negative. It's a crazy
See him
interview.
deflect instead of talking about
Yeah.
the thing you're talking about.
Only
He's
if
trying
you're
to move
18
the
or
story
over,
on.
look up that Mike Tyson interview. It's funny, but 18 and over. Anyhow, yeah, I heard from somebody at some point. See, this is the shit that I'm talking about. Like when we're talking about the DNR with the license stuff and all that stuff, making sure you're following the laws. Because like you get passed down information from people that you look up to when you're a kid, so you just believe it, and then they're not right, and then you sound like an idiot. In this case, and I've heard multiple people say this, that the brown face on a black bear indicates typically it's a male. And I've gone a significant portion of my life believing that
How many
because
people have you told that?
it had never been challenged.
Yeah.
And then I found out that through some research and Chuck making fun of me that's not true.
well, I don't even think he was gonna challenge you. I was just sitting there and I was
Which
like,
worried me. I go, no, you got to tell me if I'm wrong.
I know. Well, you said it, and then I was like, because I didn't know either, so I looked at Chuck just for some sort of verification.
Yeah.
And he was just
Give me a nod, fella.
He was kind of just like,
I liked
Oh,
I
really?
liked how it was brought up because you're like, what other facts do we want to make sure? Because we want to be educational. We know this. We know where to shoot them. We know that females have brown noses. And he's like, is that
Tell me the truth, Chuck.
is that not right?
Give it to me straight, pal.